The breaking point. The holographic projection of the Meridian Collective's High Arbiter flickered as Ambassador Michael Chen slammed his fist onto the polished obsidian table. The 7 alien representatives, seated around the circular chamber, exchanged glances of contempt mixed with surprise. Humans rarely displayed such emotion during formal proceedings. You call these terms fair? Chen's voice echoed through the vast hall of the Galactic Summit on Proxima Centauri Station. Your proposal would reduce Earth to nothing more than a protectorate, stripped of its outer colonies and resources. Humanity would become little more than servants to the collective. High Arbiter Vex Morin, his translucent skin rippling with bioluminescent patterns of indignation, leaned forward. His voice came through the translator, as smooth and calculated despite his obvious irritation. Ambassador Chen, let us be pragmatic. The recent conflict has demonstrated the Meridian Collective's military superiority. Your fleets have been pushed back to the edge of Sol's system. These terms are generous considering your position. The conflict, now in its 3rd standard year, had begun when human exploration vessels discovered rich viridium deposits in the Orient sector, resources the Meridian Collective had already claimed without properly registering with the Galactic Registry. What started as a diplomatic dispute escalated when collective warships opened fire on a human mining operation. Since then, the technologically superior collective had steadily forced humanity back through a series of devastating defeats. Chen looked around at the representatives of the 7 alien species that formed the collective. Their appearances varied wildly. From the silicon-based crystalline forms of the Kular to the gaseous containment suits of the Vesperi, but their expressions all conveyed the same message. Submission was humanity's only option. We came here in good faith, Chen said, his voice now controlled and ice-cold. But these aren't peace talks. This is a surrender ceremony. Vex Morin's upper appendages fluttered in what translated as dismissive condescension. Call it what you will, Ambassador. The terms are non-negotiable. The collective has been patient, but our newly commissioned dreadnought fleet will arrive at Sol within 30 standard days. Accept these terms, or face extinction. Chen stood silently for a moment, then tapped his neural interface. A small holographic display appeared above his wrist. Admiral Reeves, he said calmly, execute Contingency Protocol Omega. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs as Vex Morin demanded an explanation. Chen simply gathered his documents and walked toward the exit. Ambassador Chen. Vex Morin's voice boomed. What is the meaning of this? These talks are not concluded. Chen paused at the doorway, turning back to face the council. On the contrary, High Arbiter. They most certainly are. Admiral Sonia Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's flagship, and one of the few remaining heavy cruisers in humanity's battered fleet. The holographic display showing Chen's transmission faded as she turned to her command staff. You heard the Ambassador. Contingency Protocol Omega is now active. Her voice was firm, betraying none of the emotion such an order carried. Send the encrypted signal to all human vessels and settlements throughout explored space. Her executive officer, Commander Jackson, looked up from his console with wide eyes. Admiral, are we certain? This protocol has never been more than a theoretical exercise. Reeves' gaze hardened. The decision has been made, Commander. Humanity tried diplomacy. We tried compromise. The collective has made it clear that coexistence isn't possible on terms we can accept. Throughout human-controlled space, from the mining facilities on Mars to the farthest research outposts at the edge of known territory, the signal was received. Within hours, something unprecedented began to happen. Every human vessel, military, civilian, and commercial, simultaneously altered course. Mining operations shut down. Research stations went dark. Trading posts were abandoned. The entire human presence in the galaxy appeared to be converging on Earth in perfect coordination. On Meridian Prime, the collective's homeworld, Vex Morin convened an emergency session of the War Council. Our intelligence suggests they're consolidating for a final stand. The High Arbiter, explained as three-dimensional tactical displays, showed the movement of human assets. Their military doctrine is predictable. They're gathering whatever forces they have left to defend their homeworld. General Krell, the collective's most decorated military strategist, studied the patterns with his four eyes narrowed in suspicion. His exoskeleton clicked softly as he manipulated the display. "This doesn't align with human military tactics," the insectoid general noted, his translator conveying his concern. "They're evacuating colonies that aren't even under immediate threat. They've abandoned valuable mining operations and research facilities that we weren't targeting. Perhaps they've developed some new defensive technology," suggested Sub-Arbiter Lox, the Vesperi representative. "Something that requires concentration of their forces." "Impossible." Vex Morin dismissed the idea. "Our intelligence network would have detected any significant technological breakthrough. The humans are simply making their last desperate move before inevitable defeat." Krell wasn't convinced. "High Arbiter, with respect, I recommend caution. When a species faces extinction, unpredictability increases exponentially. We should delay the arrival of our dreadnought fleet until we better understand what's happening." Vex Morin's skin flashed patterns that indicated irritation and dismissal. Denied General. "This is the opportunity we've been waiting for, to end this conflict decisively and establish collective control over Sol system and its resources. The dreadnought fleet will proceed as scheduled." 22 days after the collapse of peace talks, the collective's advanced scout vessels arrived at the edge of Sol system. Their commanders expected to encounter defensive formations, perhaps minefields or automated weapon platforms. Instead, they found nothing. Sensor sweeps detected minimal activity even around Earth itself. The planet's orbital defense stations appeared to be operating on automated systems. The massive shipyards around Mars were empty. Even the civilian traffic that normally crowded the inner system had vanished. "Proceed with caution," ordered Fleet Commander Zox as the main collective force approached Jupiter. This could be a trap. The fleet moved inward, tension mounting with each passing hour as they encountered no resistance. When they reached Earth's orbit, detailed scans revealed the truth. The planet seemed almost abandoned. Population centers showed dramatically reduced activity. Spaceports stood empty. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. Vex Morin, traveling with the fleet aboard his personal command vessel, was troubled by this development. He had expected either a desperate last battle or formal surrender, not this ghostly absence. "Land a reconnaissance team," he ordered. "I want answers." The team descended to Geneva, where the United Earth Government's headquarters stood. The sprawling complex was eerily quiet as collective soldiers moved through empty corridors and abandoned offices. In the central chamber of the Security Council, they found a single human waiting, an older woman in a simple gray uniform with no insignia. "I am Dr. Eleanor Wright," she said calmly when brought before Vex Morin. "I've been waiting for you." Surrounded by guards, Wright regarded the High Arbiter with surprising composure. "Where have your people gone?" Vex Morin demanded. "They haven't gone anywhere yet," Wright replied. "But they will shortly. I remain to deliver a message and initiate the final sequence." Before Vex Morin could respond, every communication device across the collective fleet activated simultaneously. On every screen appeared Admiral Reeves, her expression resolute against the backdrop of what appeared to be an enormous control center. "This message is being broadcast to all collective forces and to every spacefaring civilization in known space," she began. "The Meridian Collective has demonstrated that peaceful coexistence is impossible under terms that preserve human dignity and independence." The transmission shifted to show an enormous structure orbiting Titan, Saturn's largest moon. A massive ring nearly 400 kilometers in diameter, pulsing with energy patterns unlike anything the Collective had ever observed. "This is the Prometheus Gate," Reeves continued, "a technology we've been developing in secret since we first detected collective expansion toward our sector 50 years ago. The footage changed again to reveal thousands of human vessels arranged in precise formation near the massive ring structure. Rather than submit to servitude or fight a war, we cannot win conventionally. Humanity has chosen a third option, Reeves explained, her voice steady. The Prometheus Gate creates a stable dimensional aperture, not merely a spatial wormhole, but a passage to a parallel reality we've spent decades preparing to inhabit. Vex Moran turned to Wright in disbelief. This is impossible. No species has mastered cross-dimensional technology at that scale. Perhaps that's because no species has ever been forced to choose between extinction and subjugation by an uncompromising power, Wright replied quietly. We've had this capability for longer than you might imagine. We hoped we never need to use it. On every screen across collective space, the Prometheus Gate flared to life. A massive aperture formed at its center, revealing a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. We are leaving this dimension, Reeves announced. Earth will remain as a monument to what could have been. Should any species wish to establish peaceful contact with humanity in our new home, Dr. Wright will provide the quantum resonance protocols before she joins us. One by one, the human ships began entering the dimensional gateway, disappearing in flashes of brilliant light. You underestimated us, Reeves' final message echoed. You thought we would either fight to the last or surrender. You never considered we might simply leave. As Wright stood before the stunned Vex Moran, she activated the small device on her wrist. The final sequence has begun, she said. In 24 hours, I too will depart. What you do with an empty Earth is no longer our concern. The implication sent shockwaves through the collective leadership. A species capable of such technology could have devastated their forces at any time. Instead, humans had chosen departure over destruction, taking their knowledge, innovation, and unpredictability somewhere beyond reach. And as the last human vessels approached the Prometheus Gate, the true extent of humanity's technological achievement and the collective's catastrophic diplomatic failure became devastatingly clear. The revelation. The Meridian Collective's War Council convened an emergency session aboard the flagship dreadnought hovering in Earth orbit. Vex Moran's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with agitation as he addressed the gathered leaders. This cannot be permitted, he declared, gesturing to the holographic display showing the Prometheus Gate still active near Saturn. If the humans possess this level of technology, they represent a threat far greater than we anticipated. We must stop the evacuation and seize this dimensional gateway technology immediately. General Krell's mandibles clicked nervously. High Arbiter, with respect, I advise extreme caution. A species that can create stable dimensional apertures could likely weaponize that technology if provoked further. I concur, added Science Director Tella, her tendrils waving anxiously. Our preliminary analysis of the gateway suggests energy manipulation capabilities far beyond our theoretical understanding. If we attempt to interfere, the consequences could be catastrophic. Vex Moran slammed his upper appendage on the table. I will not allow a defeated species to simply walk away from this conflict. Prepare our fastest vessels to intercept the human fleet before they all escape through that portal. As collective warships accelerated toward Saturn, Dr. Eleanor Wright remained in the empty Geneva complex, calmly monitoring their movements through holographic displays. A small communication device on her wrist chimed softly. Eleanor. Admiral Reeves' voice came through clearly. The collective fleet has changed course. They're heading toward the gate. Wright nodded, unsurprised. As expected, Vex Moran's pride wouldn't allow any other response. Is everything prepared for Phase 2? Affirmative, Reeves confirmed. 90% of our population and essential resources have already transitioned. The Prometheus Gate will remain stable for another 18 hours, more than enough time for the remaining ships in your departure. And Operation Lighthouse. Ready to initiate on your command. Wright's expression remained neutral, but her eyes reflected a mix of sadness and resolve. Then it's time to show them why pursuing us would be their final mistake. The collective interceptor squadron approached the massive ring structure, weapons charged and targeting systems locked on the human vessels still queued to enter the portal. Fleet Commander Zox transmitted on all frequencies. Attention human vessels. This is the Meridian Collective. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. This dimensional gateway technology is now property of the Collective. Compliance will be rewarded with mercy. No response came from the human ships, which continued their orderly procession into the swirling aperture. Zox signaled his weapons officer. Target the propulsion systems of the nearest human vessel. Disabling shots only. We need their technology intact. As the collective vessels prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. The space around Saturn's orbit seemed to ripple and distort. Alarms blared across the collective fleet as sensors detected massive energy spikes. New contacts, shouted the sensor officer. Multiple signatures emerging from. I don't understand. They're coming from nowhere. The space around the Prometheus Gate tore open in dozens of smaller rifts. Not dimensional gateways like the main portal, but smaller breaches in space-time. Through these ruptures emerged vessels unlike anything the Collective had encountered. Sleek, angular ships with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, their propulsion systems leaving no energy wake. And there were hundreds of them. Impossible, Zox whispered as the tactical display updated. Where did they come from? His question was answered when all communication channels activated simultaneously. Admiral Reeves appeared on screen, now standing on the bridge of one of the mysterious vessels. This message is directed to High Arbiter Vex Morin and the Meridian Collective leadership. She began, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to resonate through space itself. What you are witnessing is Phase 2 of the Prometheus Initiative. The display split to show the newly arrived human fleet taking position between the gate and the approaching collective vessels. The ships you now face represent only a fraction of humanity's true military capability. Reeves continued. We've maintained this fleet in dimensional phase shift for the past decade, invisible and undetectable to your sensors. We never deployed them in the conflict because we had already committed to the exodus rather than warfare. On the collective flagship, Vex Morin watched in growing horror as more rifts opened, disgorging additional human vessels. While we preferred to leave peacefully, Reeves explained, we anticipated your reluctance to allow our departure. These vessels are equipped with dimensional phase weaponry capable of targeting matter across multiple realities simultaneously. A single salvo could eliminate your fleet without leaving even subatomic particles behind. As if to demonstrate, one of the human ships fired what appeared to be a narrow beam of distorted space toward a nearby asteroid. The massive rock didn't explode or fragment. It simply ceased to exist, leaving not even dust in its wake. We do not wish to use this technology as a weapon, Reeves emphasized. Humanity has chosen exodus over genocide. But make no mistake, should you attempt to prevent our departure or pursue us through the Prometheus Gate, we will defend ourselves with absolute finality. In the Geneva complex, Dr. Wright watched as the collective interceptors halted their approach. She opened a private channel to Admiral Reeves. They've stopped, she noted, but Vex Morin won't accept this humiliation easily. He'll be calculating whether your demonstration was a bluff. Then perhaps it's time for the final revelation, Reeves replied. Wright nodded and activated her neural interface, connecting to Operation Lighthouse's command protocols. With a few mental commands, she initiated the sequence that would remove any doubt from the collective's minds. Across Earth, massive structures that had been disguised as mountains, ocean installations, and urban complexes began to transform. Metal plates shifted, revealing technological complexes that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. From these facilities emerged colossal pillars of energy that shot skyward, converging in the upper atmosphere to form a network of interconnected light. What you now witness, Wright broadcast to the collected fleet, is the true extent of the Prometheus Initiative. Earth itself has been augmented with dimensional stabilizers capable of transporting the entire planet to join us in our new home universe. The network of energy above Earth began to pulse in a complex rhythm, creating a cascading effect that made the planet itself appear to flicker in and out of reality. This was always our contingency if diplomatic relations failed completely, Wright explained. Not merely an evacuation of our people, but the preservation of our homeworld itself. The demonstration lasted only minutes before the energy pillars retracted and the hidden facilities reverted to their disguised state. But the message was clear. Humanity possessed the capability to remove themselves entirely from this reality, taking Earth with them if necessary. Aboard the collective flagship, Vex Moran's skin had faded to a pale, translucent shade, the biological indication of extreme shock among his species. General Krell and the War Council remained silent, struggling to process the implications of what they'd witnessed. High Arbiter, Krell finally spoke, we must accept the reality of our situation. The humans have technological capabilities far beyond our understanding. Attempting to stop them or seize their technology would be suicide. Science Director Tella nodded in agreement. The energy readings from their demonstration exceed anything in our theoretical models. This isn't merely advanced technology. It represents a fundamental understanding of universal constants that we haven't even begun to approach. Vex Moran remained silent, his pride warring with his instinct for self-preservation. After what seemed an eternity, he activated the communication channel. Admiral Reeves, he said, his translator struggling to mask the conflicting emotions in his voice. The Meridian Collective acknowledges your demonstration. We will not interfere with your departure. Reeves' expression remained neutral. A wise decision, High Arbiter. But there is one matter left to resolve. Dr. Wright. Wright stepped forward, addressing the collective directly. Before humanity completes its transition to our new home, we offer one final diplomatic opportunity. We are leaving behind quantum resonance protocols that will allow communication between dimensions. She held up a small crystalline device. This contains the specifications for basic dimensional communication technology, nothing that could be weaponized, but enough to establish dialogue. Whether that channel remains open depends entirely on the collective's actions after our departure. What do you mean? Vex Moran demanded. Earth will remain here as a monument, and as our anchor point to this reality, Wright explained. We expect it to remain untouched and sovereign. Additionally, the former human colonies we've evacuated are to be recognized as neutral zones, open to peaceful settlement by any species except the collective. You presume to dictate terms after abandoning this reality. Vex Moran's bioluminescence flashed with indignation. Wright's expression hardened. We're not abandoning this reality, High Arbiter. We're establishing existence in multiple realities simultaneously. Humanity will be watching what happens here. Should the collective violate these terms, the dimensional barriers we've created can be traversed in both directions. The implication was clear. Humanity could return at any time. With technology the collective couldn't hope to counter. Over the next 24 hours, the remaining human ships completed their journey through the Prometheus Gate. The collective fleet maintained its distance, sensors recording every detail, but making no move to interfere. Dr. Eleanor Wright was the last human to depart. Before entering the small shuttle that would take her to the gate, she handed the crystalline communication device to a delegation of representatives from non-collective species who had arrived to witness the historic transition. The choice of what happens next belongs to the galaxy now, she told them. Humanity hopes to someday return to peaceful relations with this universe. Whether that's possible depends on what you build in our absence. As Wright's shuttle disappeared through the dimensional aperture, the Prometheus Gate began to contract. The massive structure didn't deactivate or power down. Instead, it seemed to fold in upon itself, collapsing into higher dimensions until it vanished completely, leaving only a ripple in space-time that quickly subsided. Where the most ambitious engineering project in human history had stood, nothing remained but empty space and unanswered questions. News of humanity's dimensional exodus spread across the galaxy with the speed of quantum communication. The reaction among the various spacefaring civilizations was one of awe mingled with terror. A species that had appeared technologically inferior had revealed capabilities that rewrote the understanding of what was possible. On worlds throughout known space, scientists pored over the limited data collected during humanity's departure, struggling to comprehend the principles behind dimensional transition technology. Military strategists ran simulations of conflicts against vessels that could phase between realities, always concluding with the same result. Conventional warfare was obsolete against such capabilities. Diplomatic consequences rippled through galactic politics. The Meridian Collective's dominance, built on military superiority and technological advantage, began to crumble. Member species questioned the wisdom of remaining aligned with a power that had so catastrophically miscalculated the human response. 3 standard months after the Exodus, representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations gathered on the now empty Earth to establish the Dimensional Accord, a treaty recognizing human sovereignty over their abandoned homeworld and establishing protocols for potential future contact. The Collective, its authority diminished and its leadership in disarray following Vex Moran's resignation, was permitted to send observers but not participants to the historic gathering. As delegates stood in the same Geneva chamber where peace talks had failed months earlier, many glanced nervously at the quantum resonance receiver installed at the center of the room, the sole connection to a humanity that now existed beyond their reach. On the final day of the conference, as the last signatures were being applied to the accord, the receiver activated unexpectedly. A message appeared on the display, simple and direct. "We are watching. Choose peace." Though no human had returned, the message sent a clear signal throughout the galaxy. Humanity had not abandoned this universe. They had simply changed the rules of engagement, and in doing so, they had achieved what military might never could. They had terrified the galaxy into peace.